would ultimately, some of them, many of them, would become profitable sports bettors and then would run into a problem. The problem is that the sports books where they would get down, place the bets, would recognize them as sharps, and when they did, they would get limited or banned. And that led us to start thinking about this problem of, well, if you're actually good at this game, you're going to be prevented from playing it.
If you have access to a sports betting account, you don't have to be a bettor or a gambler, but all you have to do is put your name in and be able to log into a computer. You could be part of our network and making money passively by getting signals from our network and putting them in. And I mentioned the thousands of accounts or the 1,000 accounts that a large syndicate might be able to manage. There are over 500 million dormant sports betting accounts in the world.
Maybe the simplest way is think of it as magic. So if you ignore the secrecy part, then everything makes sense. Would you agree? The signals are public, right? If we put them into a database, here's the timestamp, here's when they put in the signal, here's what the amount was, here's who bought it. Then we grade it, we see how it worked in the future, right? Did it win or did it lose? What odds did you put it in? You have that over time, you know exactly what the whole ledger, you know, their ROI, you know, their quality score.
Your worst case scenario in this whole process is that you get all your money back and that you lose nothing, right? That's if you were to be linked up with somebody who is not good. Well, you're just actually going to either at worst get your money back, but actually in some cases you're going to get more than your money back because of the extra guarantee.
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today, we're joined by Philip Maymin, Harry Crane, and Iosif Gershteyn of Djinn Subnet 103. They discuss why sportsbooks ban profitable bettors, the genius idiot framework for selling intelligent signals without revealing them, miners and validators ensuring trustless signal delivery, and the warranty model holding geniuses accountable. They also detail Djinn's potential as a general-purpose layer wherever proprietary intelligence meets verifiable execution. Now, back to Philip, Harry, and Iosif with the 96th Ventura Labs podcast.
Djinn Subnet 103. Welcome to the podcast today, fellas. If we could just start by everyone can introduce themselves and how they're related to Djinn.
Sure. I'm Iosif Gershteyn. My background started in finance. I work in biotech, and then been working with Harry and Philip since 2020 on Analytics.bet, which has led to Djinn.
I'm Harry Crane. I'm a professor of statistics and also been involved with a lot of prediction markets and betting markets research and applications over the past couple of decades.
I'm Philip Maymin. I'm also a professor of AI and analytics at Fairfield University. And I've been involved with these wonderful gentlemen for 6 of the best years of my life.
6 years you guys have been working with each other. How did it start? What led to Djinn becoming a subnet? What's the problem you guys needed to solve?
Well, when we started Analytics.bet, we started teaching students applied math in order for them to become profitable long-term sports bettors, generate their own systems, stack edges, and we would train 2 types of people. We would train syndicate employees, so people who are already working in organizations, and individuals who wanted to make money. Now, the individuals, highly intelligent, dedicated, tenacious people, would ultimately, some of them, many of them, would become profitable sports bettors and then would run into a problem. The problem is that the sports books where they would get down, place the bets, would recognize them as sharps, and when they did, they would get limited or banned. And that led us to start thinking about this problem of, well, if you're actually good at this game, you're going to be prevented from playing it. And this is a problem that haunted us for a few years while we were trying to find a solution. And then we figured out Djinn. BitTensor came around and there was a natural 2 + 2 = 5 pairing. That's bad math. I know it's 4, but what BitTensor opened up was the possibility of unbundling information from execution. So what we did is we built a protocol on top of BitTensor that would allow people who know how to bet, but who are being prevented from betting, to sell that information to the people who can bet, who maybe don't know how to bet profitably over the long run. And so we affectionately called it the Genius Idiot Network, which led to Djinn. Now, geniuses are parlance for sharks. Idiots are how the sportsbooks see people who they allow to bet with high limits or no limits. These people have something to offer each other, and there's a great deal of value to be unlocked. So that's the origin story of Djinn.
What is the origin story of you guys getting so deeply involved with sports betting?
I think Harry
Well,
should start.
I think that's just bring a combination of the various different backgrounds that we each have, and how we came together was in noticing that we, on the one hand, have extensive backgrounds. In my case, it's more in the betting and gambling world, but in Iosif and Philip's case, more in finance, asset management, but related, not the same. But also, the three of us also have extensive experience in education, and so there was a natural combination there of in sports betting. Generally, the ones who are the ones who are teaching or putting out content generally don't actually have experience in the thing that they're teaching, because there's kind of some perverse incentives there that if you know something, you wouldn't want to put it out there. So that was something that we thought, well, how could we do it differently? How could we do it in a way where we're actually we're teaching people techniques that, of course, they still have to take it the extra mile to actually get themselves to the level that they want, but we can use our teaching background and our domain expertise to do it. That's what brought Analytics.bet to life. And so it was really just that unique combination. Very, very few, I'd hesitate to say nobody, but really very few people would have the combination of practical experience in betting and also teaching and understanding how and knowing how to transfer the knowledge in a valuable way.
Yeah, most people don't associate the academics with the actual execution. They think the academics stay in theory.
And they do, for the most part. And so that is a difference that we have. And then, but also, it comes, at least speaking from my personal experience, is it wasn't academic first and then, well, let me see how this applies. I was always interested in the application, kind of looking back, well, what even got me into statistics, which is my field, probability, which is my field. It wasn't actually an interest in statistics or probability on its own. Statistics was like many people, my least favorite subject in college. It wasn't until I started. But I was always involved in betting originally, poker, and then some sports, and then some other things. But it wasn't until I started to apply the statistics systematically in analyzing sports data that I actually really started to appreciate and actually learn statistics. So the original thought for me with Analytics.bet, for example, was actually not to teach people how to become profitable bettors. Of course, that was kind of the motivation in principle. But for me, it was, I think the best way to learn statistics is to learn it in a context that you actually care about. And a lot of people care about sports and sports betting. And so I just thought it would be a good way to teach. And I still think it is, but it also does have the benefit of being profitable if you do it right. And then, of course, the challenges that we're highlighting here. If you do it right, you do it profitably, you can't do it anymore. And so now a new problem arises. How can we solve that problem?
How many sports books have you been banned off of, Harry? Is that the motivation for starting?
For sure. I mean, I'm be the first user of this platform, and we are all, we intend to use it. That's why we're building it. The people who we know, our friends, our colleagues, our users, would-be users of the platform, they all have solutions to this problem on their own, or they've attempted to solve it on their own. And you can kind of think about, well, how would you solve this on your own? There's kind of a very natural approach. Okay, you're a sports bettor. You've gone to all these sports books. You now are not able to bet at the level that you want. The next natural step is you get you go to your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, cousins, friends, etc. That can sustain you for as long as you have those people, and you run out of family members. Bottom line, you run out of people you can trust. So there are operations that specialize in this. It's a huge logistical challenge, but specialize in getting, kind of vetting people, getting accounts from people, getting basically strangers to participate in this process. That's a very time-consuming process. It's a risky process because of the trust issues, and it has a ceiling in terms of how much it can scale. The very biggest, best operations are able to logistically manage, let's say, in the hundreds or maybe low thousands numbers of accounts. 1,000 accounts to manage is quite a few. That's only available to the very biggest and the very best. They're making a lot of money doing it with really just 1,000 accounts. But it turns what's a betting operation into a logistical operation, a personnel management operation, which is, generally speaking, is not what I'm interested in. It's not what my skill set is, and it's not the skill set of most of the people who get into this business, right? So what we're solving is to provide them with that platform, right? Think about Uber, right? Before you used to need to hail a taxi, or it was something where you needed to. There was a very old school, very kind of high friction way of doing it. But now, if you have a car, you can go make a little extra money. Now, if you have access to a sports betting account, you don't have to be a bettor or a gambler, but all you have to do is put your name in and be able to log into a computer. You could be part of our network and making money passively by getting signals from our network and putting them in. And I mentioned the thousands of accounts, or the 1,000 accounts that a large syndicate might be able to manage. There are over 500 million dormant sports betting accounts in the world. So, that's something that we could scale to a chunk of that if we set up the network and the incentives in the right way. And that's what we're going for.
Is a good framing for like a mental model to understand what you guys are doing close to a decentralized execution of, hey, this one account is really good, it's going to get banned, so just spread that signal across infinite accounts?
Yeah, I mean that would be the it's the way that sports books essentially operate is through a game of whack-a-mole, right? So they're saying here's a winning bettor, get rid of him. Here's a winning bettor, get rid of him. Well, if they can't, if now what we're going to be doing is dispersing that information across such a wide a wide range of accounts, where they're either not going to be able to detect it anymore, or there's just going to be too much going on, and they're going to have a harder time. But even if they do ban one account, another one will pop up, right? So it is the decentralization, and as Iosif mentioned earlier, it's decoupling the information component from execution. And that's really the key, is that decoupling is that the person who's actually maybe executing on information is not the person who originated the information. And our network allows that to scale and to continue and sustain itself indefinitely, right? As long as we have people using this network.
But Grant, to your question, your solution is right? If you could split this across 1,000 people, like Harry puts it, the first thing geniuses do is they call their mom, their uncles, their nephews, right? What are some of the problems you can imagine if you split it across infinite groups of people executing a small amount?
What are the problems?
Yeah.
It might be like the execution venues themselves. So it's like there is no unified place for all these markets right now. There's Kalshi, there's Polymarket, there's, I don't know, other sites. Every Las Vegas casino probably has their own book. So I guess that leads me into my other question here of why is this approach better versus creating a unified market?
A unified market meaning like there's one version, one poly market for all, or one sports book for all. Is that what you're thinking, or what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, right now, the problem I would see with sports betting is all these different books are like individual liquidity pockets for a market. Is there a way to bring all those markets together, or is that kind of what you guys are doing with this decentralized execution?
Well, in a way, that is what we're doing, and in a way, that is what anyone who would anyone who wants to bet, right? If it's whatever Caesars, MGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever the Kalshi Poly market. Generally speaking, a professional or a sophisticated bettor doesn't care where they place a bet. They go for the best price, the best liquidity, the best outlet, whichever one gives them access. All 6 of those are initially in play. And then as they drop off, there's less and less and less of them. But, the way that, the way that we think about it, the way that, people like us think about it is that it's one global market ultimately. There might be an outlet in Asia or Europe or South America that's offering odds on a game. If they're the best odds and the best outlet, then we would, then you'd want to bet there. So that's not how the individual outlets operate because they're fighting for market share, right? It's just like any casino. They want you to go and play the slot machine at their casino, even though they're all the same slot machine. And so it's fragmented by design because that's how the licensing works. That's how the regulation works. And that's just how competition works in business. And then on the user side, there really is no need for it to be fragmented, but so this is kind of the solution. This is the solution to that problem. But it's never going to be a unified solution because that's just not how the companies compete, and that's not how the regulations are set up.
I guess this leads into the actual design here. So you guys have what you call geniuses. These are the miners. They provide the information. And the idiots are the consumer or the ones actually executing on this information. How would you design or how would you explain the validator miner dynamics here?
It's interesting you put it that way, Grant. That was one of the first things, of course, we were starting to think about when we first started Djinn is the geniuses should be the miners. But in fact, we came to a different approach. Neither the geniuses nor the idiots are on the BitTensor subnet. The subnet itself has miners and validators. The miners are general purpose attestation. So they say, look, I can verify and prove that these odds were available at this time. Make sense? That's their role, is to say that what is the truth, and I can verify it and prove it cryptographically on chain. This was real. So you can't just put out a bet and be like, yeah, I want to bet on the World Cup at plus $1 billion. I think that's a great bet. Well, sure. That would be a great bet for anybody. I want to bet plus 300 on heads. Great. Good for you. That's not an available bet anywhere. So what does it mean for a genius to say something that's not executable, right? So the miners make sure that whatever the genius says is in fact executable. Fine. The validators, so the miners don't have anything to do with Base or other crypto or USDC. They're purely within the BitTensor network. And we could talk about other things they can do because it generalizes. Their skills actually generalize to offer additional things. The validators then make sure that they have uptime and speed and responsiveness and all the rest of it. And they are the ones who do the magnificent work of keeping the signals secret. Because it's one thing to say, I'm a genius, I have this signal. But if it's out there in the web and anybody can pick it off, if it's all on chain, What am I paying any money for? I'll just snoop the chain. I see a signal. I got it, right? So we have an enormous amount of technological innovation that makes sure that the signal, once the genius puts it in there, is encrypted and no one can see it except for an idiot who purchased it. We can't see it. You can't see it. No miners can see it. No single validator can see it. So the validators do all this multi-party computation stuff and sharing secrets and shards and all this other stuff to make sure that whatever is on chain is enough to audit and to prove the results of the genius, but not enough to reveal the specific signals.
You may have other questions on that, but just one thing that I think is really important to highlight here is that as Philip mentioned, the geniuses and the idiots are users of the platform. The miners and the validators are kind of what makes the protocol work. The key point being that this is the revenue, right? There's the money from this exchange. The key for this protocol is that there is an enormous amount of liquidity and revenue that exists off chain. Most of where the money comes from is off chain. We're not relying on emissions to pay geniuses or idiots. Idiots are paid for their service, essentially. Geniuses are only paid if they provide good winning signals. They don't. If they don't, they lose. So there's an enormous amount of revenue that is available. The global sports betting market is about $1 to $2 trillion. So you can imagine getting a very small market share there of, let's say, 1% is already $10 billion in annual volume. Our network, just to give you some idea of how the economics work, our protocol charges a fee of 0.5%, which would be $50 million on that. And a chunk of those fees go to buybacks and things like that. So to incentivize the stakers and incentivize the miners further. So there's a real economic engine here that is critical to fueling the whole, miner, validator, staking, and whole bit tensor incentive component that goes on behind the scenes.
Okay. So now my understanding of the dynamic is there's two users of your platform, the geniuses that get banned on these sports books and they need some other venue to execute. And then, so the idiot, they buy whatever signal, the genius's signal gets routed through miners and validators and delivered to an idiot, the end user.
Yeah, yes, and there are several issues that come with that. One of the main issues is just the preventing bad actors from having an exploitable approach to this network. For example, if let's say that there's World Cup USA versus Cape Verde, theoretically, you could sell a signal that's USA and then sell an identical signal that's Cape Verde at the same odds. And then if that was it, if you could just sell the signals costlessly, whichever one won, you extracted your win, and you could screenshot that, talk about how you're always right, and then just ignore the loss. So that's what a lot of shills do. They'll split everything up. They'll talk about their wins. They'll be silent about their losses. They'll create very fake reputations that are accumulating wins. We know this, and we had to make an incentive mechanism that would be hardened against this sort of attack and would align the incentives of good actors and misalign the incentives of bad actors. So our signals that are being sold have a warranty percentage. So if you're a shill, you would not use our system because you don't actually have an edge, which means your expected value is going to be a loss. But if you actually know what you're doing, then you're going to be selling a signal roughly for what it's worth, more or less, and you're going to be guaranteeing that signal. You're going to have a warranty. So what that means is that there is no longer an incentive to play both sides and to try to fake it. And moreover, you're building an anonymous and verifiable reputation system, a reputation that is that you do not have to expose your picks and open them up to reverse engineering while building zero knowledge proof that will allow anybody to be able to get to be able to validate the fact that you have done what you've said you've done, that you have this win percentage, that you have this ROI.
There's a couple components here. How do you guys verify this reputation of competency, basically of the signals coming in, this reputation from a certain account?
Well, it's more a track record than a reputation, right? It's not
Yeah. Like proof that they have a positive ROI is probably
Exactly.
a better way to frame it.
Exactly. So imagine, so we know they have a bunch of signals. Each one of them is encrypted, so no one can read it. But there's ways to do it so that the validators each only know like 1/3, right? And you need a bunch of them to get together to generate the result without any one of them learning it. So they grade each outcome secretly, and they can then verify that the track record cryptographically provably is what it is, given everything else that's on chain. Does that make sense?
For a track record here, how are you determining ROI over time? Is it just like a look back period of like a month?
No, it's through, well, we report different windows, but it's all the way through their entire history. And each signal comes with a notional, which is the max amount of size they can trade, right? So typically, you might imagine one genius just always trades $100 units, right? That's it. So then the ROI is the same as everything. It's just easy to calculate. Some of them might have different. So they might have 100 most of the time, but sometimes they have 1,000 or 5,000. Then you also can see how much of that was purchased, right? It's one thing to say, I'm willing to do 100,000, but if no one buys anything from you because you're off or because no one knows about you or whatever, then you don't get credit for that, right? You only get credit for signals that were purchased by willing idiots at willing prices from you. And then we evaluate each individual outcome, and you have the whole track record, all keeping you accountable on chain, but secret.
I think the easiest way to understand this would be if we run through an example of this flow from genius to execution.
Maybe the simplest way is think of it as magic. So if you ignore the secrecy part, then everything makes sense. Would you agree?
If I ignore the secrecy part, you're just
Yeah,
saying
if the signals are public, right? If we put them into a database, here's the timestamp, here's when they put in the signal, here's what the amount was, here's who bought it. Then we grade it, we see how it worked in the future, right? Did it win or did it lose? What odds did you put it in? You have that over time. You know exactly what the whole ledger, you know, their ROI, you know, their quality score, whatever you want to call it. Agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only hard part is how do you keep it a secret? And that's very complicated. We could talk about it in principle, but that's where the validators show their worth. That's where the multi-party computation happens. The essential idea of multi-party computation is you compute lots of different solutions, and there exists a Shamir secret sharing algorithm where you can pick out which one. You ask if the true one is a member of the particular set that you calculated as being winners, right? So that way you could do outcomes. If you have one of the things we do is whenever you put in, a genius puts in a signal, let's say for one game, he's taking the over on one particular game. We hide it among 100 or 1,000 other signals. So what's on chain is 1,000 different possible signals. And the only thing that has to be encoded as a secret is which of those 1,000 is the real one. Then when the multi-party computation happens, they compute it for all 1,000. And the output is, was that secret a member of one of the ones that won? And that is computed cryptographically securely correctly. We know that the true answer is, even though no single validator ever learns which index that was. That's the magic. That's the beauty part.
Okay. How is this track record over time created then if no single party knows the full history?
They know the outcomes. They can prove, you can cryptographically prove what the outcome is without revealing which signal it was. Think about it for just one game. So I bet on the Lakers, and there's like 1,000 other bets that could have been in there. Some are on the Celtics, some are on the Knicks. Many of them won, right? Many of them didn't. So we grade all of them. And then the only question is, can we prove that the one bet that was real was a member of the set of the ones that won? That specific question, there exists an algorithm. We didn't come up with this algorithm. This is a standard kind of multi-party computation, Shamir secret sharing kind of algorithm using polynomials and all this other stuff that can answer that question among different validators without any one of them knowing the truth.
Okay. I think
So
what I'm trying to ask here is a miner over time, how are you determining the performance?
Sorry, the miner or the genius?
Or I guess the genius. Yeah, sorry. Those aren't the
So
same
the genius,
roles.
if we agree that we can, and we have the code live, so it's working, for each outcome, for each game, we have the correct outcome, right? Secretly. Then we just have a series of them. We know all of their signals over time, then you just add it up.
Okay. So I'm a genius, right? I come to you guys and I say, I want to take the Brazil money line and I want to put $10,000 on it. What happens next? How does that flow to the end user?
An idiot would log in and they would say, well, what are my signals available to me today? I'm willing to do anything. I know I'm an idiot. I know I have no edge, but I'm willing to pay these geniuses who do have an edge to get their information. So I see the whole menu of possibilities. I see this one. I don't know which game it's on. I know the sport. That's about it. So I see there's a World Cup. I assume it was Brazil, right? So I see there's a World Cup by a genius. I have some information about the genius. Maybe I have his historical track record. This is the stuff that we've talked about being accountable and attested on chain and proven. So I see what his historical track record was. And that's essentially it. I see the notional size that he's willing to do. I see the price that he's charging for this piece of information. I see his guarantee or his service level agreement guarantee, meaning if he turns out to be wrong over a series of these things, not on one bet, because that's just gambling, but over a period of time, he's trying to prove that he's committed to his certain quality level. If that quality level is high enough for me, if the price is attractive to me, I click it, I pay. So let's say it's for 100 notional and he wants to charge 5%. I would pay $5. I pay $5. It's gone, right? And now it's revealed on my screen only to me. It's decrypted locally in my browser as a client, right? Only to me. No one else on chain can see it. And now it says, oh, Brazil, my God. And now what do? I have to hustle. Either I could just say, wow, this was really entertaining. I really enjoyed seeing what this genius would have said. I feel in my heart that I'm a happy person now. Great. Or if I really want to make some money off of it, if I want to use this information, if I want to execute, now I look at my brokers, my books. Where can I do this trade? This guy, this genius is telling me Brazil, right? Okay, so let me call my sports book or look on Polymarket or wherever I have my outs and say, aha, I can get it at this line that he recommended. Let's put it on, and I'll put on some amount of size, right? Whatever I want to do. I could do 0, I could do 1 billion. It's up to me. I now have this signal. That's it. Now, once that's done, as far as Djinn is concerned, whatever you do off chain, that's your business. You want to go to a sports book, go to a sports book. You want to have a friendly bet, that's your choice. Whatever your regulations, your jurisdiction, your betting desires and your bankroll better than anything that we don't have nothing to do with that, right? We sold you a piece of information. Enjoy it, whatever you want to do. Now, from the chain perspective, back to Djinn, we know that the genius sold and this idiot bought. And over a period of time, we can get into the details, but it's not every single signal is settled. But over some period of time, if we have enough interaction between this genius and idiot, say 10, we have 10 such signals. If we expected you to win 6 out of them and you won 6 out of them, then so be it. What you paid was reasonable. But the genius essentially promised that you would not do too poorly, right? So if it ends up that the genius sucks, if you end up only winning 4 out of 10 or heaven forbid, 3 out of 10, there needs to be some movement of collateral. The genius has put up some collateral saying that he guarantees that over time, his quality will express itself in the average wins and the ROI and so on. So when he underperforms, you get you get either made whole on your purchase price, or the rest of it comes back as Djinn credits, which you can use. So there's an accountability built in that, like Iosif was mentioning earlier, does not exist for touts. For touts, there's 2 problems. One, the ones he mentioned, the screenshotting, right? And the selection bias. You only look at the winners, ignore the losers. And the second is there's no accountability. You can say whatever you want was your track record, right? But here we know that it's all on chain. If the tout is wrong, if the genius is wrong, if the tout is wrong, nothing happens. Hey, things happen. But if the genius is wrong, they've put their money where their mouth is. They're committed to their quality.
Now might be a good time for a demo, if you have one, Iosif, of this interaction from the user perspective.
Okay. Yeah. So let me, is there a way to share a screen here?
Yes. There should be a screen share button just in the bottom on the middle.
Mhm.
I have some follow-up questions, Phil. So I'm gonna wait for this to go. I'll get back.
Okay.
See
Yep.
the screen.
All right. So this is Djinn.gg. And if you're buying, for example, we see a bunch of signals, and this is the fee. We go in here and we decide to buy a signal. What this will do is this will, once it goes through.
Talk me through what I'm seeing here. How do I decide what signals to buy?
Well, I don't need to really care what signals to buy. What I care is about the warranty, because if the warranty is above 100%, that means if I win, I win. And if I lose, I'm going to get my money back and some.
Okay.
Let's go.
Let me see the warranty spot here. So I would and the warranty is just collateral that the genius has put up.
Correct. In fact, if you want to show the genius side first, Iosif. Does that work? Oh, it's covered up.
It's covered up. Hold on, I think I can. Let's see.
Yeah. So as a genius, you create signals, right? So if you go through the signal creation process, it'll ask you which game you want, which lines and so on. This is this is all available through APIs too. So if it's easier for you as a genius to do it all through agentically as opposed to this user interface, that's all fine too. You can see Iosif's clicking through. You can pick a particular spread. You can see what all of the books are. These are all live numbers. So when you're ready, you pick it. You pick what your fee is. Your fee, if you want to think about it as a genius, your fee is basically your edge. So if you think you're going to make a 10% edge, you should charge something under a 10% fee, right? You want to give something to the idiots, right? They're not going to, if they see over time that you're charging your full edge, then your quality score is going to be 0, right? There's nothing left for the idiot to participate in. So you would charge a little less, or in this case, maybe Iosif has a really strong edge. He thinks it's 15%. This would create a signal. Great. And this is all you can see. It's private. It's local only. It's encrypted on your browser. No one else can see it. No one on chain. No one and you can't see it. No one can see it. Great. So this would create the signal. You can close this, Iosif. Go ahead. The backing multiplier. This is a way of expressing the strength of your view. So it's one thing to ask for a certain amount of money, but if you end up being wrong, typically on average in the long run, how much are you willing to pay back of the losses? Not pay back of losses. It ends up meaning how much would you be willing to lose of your collateral, right? If the notional is $100 and you're getting $10. If over time you're losing a lot of these things, then you should be giving back 100% of your losses, right? If you're constantly picking losers, you should be willing to commit your notional to say, if I lose, I give up. I lose my $100. Of course, it's not a loss. It's not a bet. But what this is a quality guarantee that over a large period of time, over enough signals, over a large sample, you are committed to a certain level of quality with true accountability behind it.
Okay.
That's the genius side. Yeah,
So
go ahead, Grant.
yeah, so geniuses will put up collateral saying, I want to take and the collateral size basically says the amount they want to take a bet for.
No, that's the notional size. And then the collateral is a percentage of that. So up to the certain so suppose you want to do 1,000 of notional. Maybe the idiots only want to do 100 of it. So you're only going to be on the hook for $100, right? Not for the 1,000 that you wanted to do. You still have to sell your information, your signal to an idiot. Agreed?
I mean, there's a lot there that I'm not sure I can just say I agree to this. I don't know.
Think of it. Okay, you're a genius. You want to put on a bet that's $1,000, right?
Okay.
But you can't just wish and happens, right? You have to convince people. So what part of the convincing you can do? You have 3 routes. You could be a tout, and you could tell people this is the way to go, and you hope that they just trade on your behalf. 2, you could try to have a network of your friends, and they use their accounts to put it on, or you use your accounts to wherever you're not banned. Or 3, you go to Djinn and you sell your signal. What does it mean to sell? First, you have to offer it, right? I'm happy to offer up to $1,000. Why don't you do 10,000? Because you have to put up collateral to guarantee, to show that you have skin in the game, right? That you're committed to it. And maybe you don't have 10,000 lying around, or you're not willing to commit that much. It's too much of a risk for you, but you're willing to commit up to $1,000. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But you're not, you didn't place a bet, right? You're just out there saying, I'm willing to commit up to $1,000 on this particular signal. Somebody else has to come in and buy some portion of that. Maybe someone will come in and buy all 1,000. Maybe someone comes in and buys 100. Someone else buys another 100. Does that make sense? It's like you're listing your signal for sale. I have some information for sale.
Okay. And then the credibility of this signal. From an end user, how do they determine the credibility? Do you show the ROI of this signal provider over time?
Yes. Can you go back there, Iosif, and show the listings? So if you see the available signals, there's a signal. Currently, the genius doesn't have enough of a track record to reflect anything beyond 0. So he has a 0 quality score, right? 0.00 QS. So these geniuses, so far, the World Cup has just started. They don't have enough audited bets to show any track record. So that's one thing you could look at. The second thing you could look at, if you go back again, sorry, Iosif, is the skin in the game. Some of them, if you're much more convicted as a genius, if you want to express your strength of character and will, and that you have a really good signal, you might put up a backing of more than 100%. Like the one Iosif is pointing at, it's 125% backing. What is that telling you as a buyer? That's telling you that this genius, even though maybe he's new, right? But he wants to show that he has credibility behind him. He's putting up not $100, he's putting up 125. In case.
And that means, as a user, if I buy that signal for $100, if I win, I win, and I should have executed that transaction somewhere. But if I lose, I receive $125.
Almost, yes. That's almost true. The only thing is it's not done bet by bet, because that would just mean that you have a bet here. It's not a bet. What you're doing is you're buying a signal with a quality guarantee. So over a sequence of bets with the same genius idiot pair, yes, on average will happen exactly what you said, because you want it to be not just the noise of a single game.
So are you buying a subscription to a genius over time?
You're buying one signal at a time, and then when you've accumulated a certain amount with the same genius, then it automatically gets audited, and we audit for quality. and for all of these notional guarantees, and we make everybody go exactly the way you would have expected it to go.
Okay, so after how many bets I use from a particular source, when would I receive money back for losses?
We found that the best sweet spot is about 10. When you have 10 genius idiot pairs of signals, and they could be across different sports, but just the same genius and the same idiot wallets, then the law of large numbers kicks in. You're not taking random noise on games, because any game, even if you have a 5% edge, you're still losing 45% of the time, right? That's not anything to do with quality. But once you get to about 10, then if there are still losses cumulatively after that, then the genius has failed, hasn't he? He promised you a certain thing and he didn't deliver, so he's going to kick in, and you're going to start getting reimbursed back. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what happens if I never get to 10? I only get to 9. Well, there's also a timeout. So if there's been, I don't remember what it is, our current signal, it's been a week and you haven't finished with the genius idiot, then it'll resolve, but it'll resolve with Djinn credits rather than dollars. So everybody gets set up and you can keep going.
So you guys keep basically this history of this idiot's taken or bought 10 bets from this particular genius, each for $100, and you calculate the ROI on that at the end. Okay. And then the difference is reimbursed to the user if it's negative?
That's exactly right. Well, it's, yes, reimbursed in one of two ways. Up to the purchase price, you just get literally your money back. Beyond that, you get Djinn credits.
Okay. So if you take 10 bets, at worst as a consumer, you can have your money back.
The games would have to lose, right? If the games win, you're not getting your money back, right? If the genius was in fact a genius and delivered what he promised to deliver, you're not getting your money back, right?
Well, yeah. If you win all 10, or if all 10 bets win, you don't get anything back because you bought the signal, assuming you're executing it somewhere. But if all 10 lose, you would get returned your purchasing price of the signals?
You get both. You get your purchasing price refunded in dollars or USDC, the same way you paid. Everything beyond that, you get refunded as Djinn credits, which you can use for future purchases.
Why the excess? Why the above refunds?
Why is it Djinn credits after the...
Yeah, why not just... Because that's good enough to take a risk-free bet, no?
The purchase price? No, because imagine, say you paid $5 for a $100 bet and you did it 10 times. And suppose all of them lost. You're not down just the $5 times 10, right? You're out of pocket that. But if you were also trading on the other side, if you believed in the genius, you're down $500, right?
Yeah.
You're down $100 to, what do we say, 10 bets. You're down 1,000 then, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm caught up on, how does a user pick a genius? How do they know which one to believe?
Phil, do you mind if I give? I guess here's how, here's the idea behind it. How do you know that? I guess one way to frame it on the Uber side is, how do you know what car to get into? Well, you just get into it and it pretty much gets you where you need to, right? So the app is designed to basically to work in that way. Here, there's a little bit of something different, because you're saying, well, you might lose money, or you're trying to make money on this. But that's the whole point of what you just went through with Philip there, is actually your worst case scenario in this whole process is that you get all your money back and that you lose nothing. Right? That's if you were to be linked up with somebody who is not good. Well, you're just actually going to either at worst get your money back, but actually in some cases you're going to get more than your money back because of the extra guarantee. You understand? Or if they're actually good, you will be winning on the other side, and therefore you'll walk away ahead. Does that make sense?
Well, Phil raised the point there. I'm buying a signal for $5, but I might go bet $100. So my actual like potential losses are significantly more than what I bought the signal for.
Is that well, Philip? You were doing the example when you say buy $5. Are you saying that it's the $5 is the notional value, and you choose
No,
to
so the price is 5%, let's say, of $100 notional, and you do 10 of those. So you paid $5 times 10, you paid $50 out of pocket, right? That was just for the value of the signal. Now, if you're betting $100 notional on the side after you receive these beautiful signals, that's on you. And if they all failed, yes, you're out $1,000, right? Unless that's the problem that we're solving with Djinn. If you, right, the problem is, yes, you would lose that. But with Djinn, with the genius who gave 100% guarantee, you would get that all back as Djinn credits. If he gave 125% guarantee, you get more than that back as Djinn credits.
Okay, so is the way to use the system, you bet the same amount you're buying the signal for?
That's the presumption. That would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In
That's
other words,
where the disconnect happens.
Yeah. So if suppose you only pay, think about it, it's all incentive mechanism design, isn't it? Suppose you only pay, you see there's a signal out there for $1,000. You only put up $1. And so you pay 5 cents. Good for you, right? But now you're going to go bet 100. Well, what if that fails? You're only going to be protected in a sense. The genius's warranty is only for the $1 notion.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. You're incentivized as the end user to buy it for the amount you're going to bet.
Correct.
And the genius sells it because he can't execute it himself.
You got it.
Okay, I understand. I understand this piece.
That's the essence. So you understand the essence.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now the mechanism to make this possible. Let's see if I can grab this one too. The miners, they receive a signal from the genius. What do they do then?
Well, they don't.
Or is that even wrong?
That's a little bit wrong because we have to. It's really hard, right? It's very subtle because there's lots of places the signal could slip out, but we have to make sure at every stage it's secret, so the miners never see it. What miners would see, like you saw Iosif doing earlier, you put in a signal as a genius, it's automatically filled in with decoy lines. So the miner receives not one signal, but like several hundred. And they have to attest that all of them are live. Right? So they go out and they check the odds. They make sure, they say this one is live, this one is not, this one is live, this one is not. And miners compete to do that faster, more reliably, across different books and so on. The validators then collect all that information. They see that all these miners agree that these are the lines that are live and these are the lines that are not, right? That's all the miner saw. One of them was real, but hundreds of them were decoys. Now the validators have to see, is the real one, the real signal, is it in the set of signals that are live and executable, or is it in the set of signals that are not executable? That's where the multi-party computation comes in. And that's where they can find the answer to that question without revealing which particular index it was.
So the validators are decrypting from this list which one is what the genius said.
You're almost, I just want to pick on your words a little bit, because if they decrypt it, then that means it's public and everybody knows. No one ever finds out. In this magical computation, the validators are able to tell if the true signal is executable without revealing what the true signal is. So think of it, so say there's 100 decoys, okay? And there's a secret index that indicates which one is the real one. Say it's number 37. And that number 37 is never stored anywhere. Imagine if that was stored on a chain. And anybody could look it up and you know what the real signal was, right? That number 37 is split into shards. At the time, and only locally on the Genius's client server, on the client side, it's split into shards, distributed to validators. So some validator gets some piece of information. Another validator gets another piece of information. If you control all the validators, yes, you can piece together those things and say, aha, this is representing the number 37. But because the validators are decentralized, they don't talk to each other as separate individual independent entities. No single one of them has the information about the number 37. But they have enough information that they can compute together if 37, which element of an array is the secret element, and does it belong to the set of the ones that have that are executable or not executable?
Okay, so miners are rewarded for saying what lines are executable or not?
Yes. Yeah. And not just saying it, because then the miner could be like, everything's executable, right? But they have proof. And we could talk about that in detail too, but they have cryptographic proof that a particular API at a particular time for a particular sport reported that this line was tradable at this particular book.
Okay, how did they prove it?
They use TLS Notary. TLS Notary is an open source software that, the S in HTTPS? When you connect to a website with HTTPS, it starts an encrypted communication. TLS Notary injects a third party into that communication. That third party doesn't know what the content is that's going by, but they can cryptographically attest and prove that the content that came out was served at that time by that source, because they see the cryptographic encryption. They know the source. They know the destination. They generate a proof that what was received was in fact received at that time from there, and that proof can then be verified by anybody at any time in the future. Was it in fact there? Yes, it was.
Okay. What is the reason for needing the miner and validators here instead of just routing everything through your validator?
Then the people would have to, for two problems. One, they would have to trust us for the lines. What if we say a line is executable, but it wasn't? Right? That's where the miners compete to show that they have the proof that it was indeed, that it was real. If we do it and we are both sides of the TLS notary, then we're just notarizing ourselves. Like, yeah, you saw it. Yeah, I saw it. Great. Good for us. Right. We're done. No, it has to be decentralized, distributed. There's a different peer notary from the miner who found it, plus the third party where the source is coming from. So that's one thing, is just to assure the end users that when this subnet says that something was executable, there's a whole cryptographic chain of proof that shows that it was, and that proof is believable because it's not just one person shaking his own hand. That's one thing. The second problem is if it's just us in the center running our own miners and validators. Even if we have that part, if you're not worried about that, you just trust us or we build up a track record, we will see your signal. And then you just have to trust us to not front run, to not resell it, to not do whatever, or to not get hacked and people might see it, right? There's all sorts of potential problems there with centralization. That's why BitTensor is such a natural home for Djinn, and Djinn is such a natural use case for BitTensor, right? BitTensor generates all sorts of information and intelligence, but how do you execute on that? That's where Djinn comes in.
Okay. Why is it important that there's competition introduced at this level of proving the lines are executable?
There's two things. There's two components, and they're both important. One is the part that's getting access to the lines. So they're going out to an API. And the second is they're going out and getting access and they're proving it, right? So they're doing a TLS notary. The second part that the miner does, miners do both of these things. They do peer notarization. You don't notarize yourself within the same server, right? If I'm going out to an API and I need a third party to connect and do TLS notary, if that third party is me, what's the point? I'm just notarizing myself. I'm stamping giving myself my own certificate. Good for me. No. So the validators find a peer who is on a different IP, right? Who's not the same miner, is not a Sybil, to be a peer notary for the other miner to generate trust that when they work together and they go to that third party source of information, that it was really there. Does that make sense? You need competition on both ends. You need competition for uptime and speed and availability just on the getting the information part. But you also at the same time have to be serving others as a peer to agree to notarize what they are attesting that they see.
Okay, so does the platform, the end user, receive the signal through a singular validator or through all the validators?
Does who receive it?
The end user. Like I go to your website, is that all through your validator?
No, it's all distributed. It goes to every validator and then it brings it all back together. So different validators, there's a gossiping mechanism so that the validators learn what each other has. So it all keeps together. But it's certainly not all our validator for sure.
Okay. And so I'm assuming the only reason then to run a validator would be purely for the validator admissions, because they wouldn't be able to derive the signal independently and execute it.
Right. In fact, you're right about that. Just being a validator by yourself is not enough to get any information and signal in front run. But we noticed something, I think this was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. No one had generated or touched this exploit. But if you are a genius and a validator, there was one little thing you could have done to potentially extract some piece of information. We've now closed that loophole too.
Okay. So if the stake is majority on a singular validator, doesn't it cause the problem you're describing of they would be able to know the signal and front run you?
Great question. The answer, thank God, is no. So when the validators do two things. One is they set weights, and the weight setting is done with the V stake, the V trust and the stake. That's all fine and good. So if you have the most stake, you will have the most weights in the consensus weights. Fine. But when it comes to the MPCs, it's equal. If you could think of it as like House of Representatives versus senators, or equal weighted stocks versus value cap weighted stocks. It's the same people or the same components, but weighted differently. One can be weighted with stake, but the MPC computation, we're all equals here. We need 2, we need 3, we need 4 validators to get the signal to work.
Okay. Is there another way you could explain that? Sorry, I zoned out a little bit there.
Yeah. So your question is, if you have a validator that has majority stake,
yes,
doesn't that mean everything is ruined and life is over as we know it? And thank God the answer is no, because the multi-party computation is stakeless. It has nothing to do with stake. We just literally need different validators. And we curate the validators based on stake. So the biggest ones come in and there's only a few of them. So when the multi-party computation is happening, it doesn't matter who has more or less stake. There's no voting. It's literally, I'm a validator and I have a shard. You're a validator. You have a shard.
So then you just create a whitelist of validators.
Correct.
Okay.
It actually happens automatically, but sure.
Yeah. How many is required?
3. So then you have 2 out of 3 can agree.
Okay. I guess then what stops you guys from just running all 3 validators?
I suppose in principle nothing, but that's all visible on chain. So we're not running them. They're the biggest validators in the world, right? Running it. We are running one. Our life goal, I can share here for the first time, is to not run it. We don't want to run a validator. We'd rather it's everybody else. But for now, while we're still iterating and testing, and we test on ours for smoke tests first, canary test, make sure it's working, then we release it to the fleet. We can't run it by ourselves. It has to be with lots of other validators. And again, hopefully it'll never, at some point in the future, it won't be us at all.
I think I understand the system. What has you guys most excited about what you guys are building?
I think that we've come upon something that solves a giant issue in multiple areas in the world, not just sports betting. I think that sports betting is the best wedge, a very good entrance, but one of the reasons why we called it Djinn is it means spirit. So it's taking information from one place, giving it to another. And the value of information and the value of secure information transfer and splitting up, unbundling intelligence and execution, that's extraordinarily valuable in many, many areas. So just in sports betting, it's going to unlock incredible amounts of value. Once this system is fully tested live and starts accumulating scale, it can resurface the entire sports betting landscape. Once that happens, that unlocks a bunch of potential use cases for this technology. As far as we know, nobody has done this before. Putting together all of these components in this way, solving an extraordinary amount of technical challenges, and I'm sure there will be technical challenges on a use case by use case basis, but if you have the ability to securely transmit information with the economic value exchange without the use of trust, that creates infinite possibility.
What do you think is another application of this minor validator dynamic to securely transmit this information beyond sports betting, or I guess stock trading or markets, or is that what it's designed for?
Well, markets are the natural home for things like information exchange with economic value, but you can also think of remote robotics and IP. So if you have an environment that has verifiable output, and you have, for example, parties that don't have a reliable way to enforce IP law, you may want to unbundle the ability of a high degree of freedom robot to be able to execute on some certain design without sharing the design itself. So if the execution is verifiable, there is the potential for unbundling manufacturing from design. Does that make sense?
One more time on that? Unbundling design from manufacturing?
Yeah, so imagine just a really sci-fi use case. You have a high degree of freedom robot. It can manufacture anything, but it doesn't know what to manufacture. And it's in country X. And then you have designers who know how to create, let's go really crazy, amazing cars. Now, if they just send the design of the car, they don't know they don't know how many cars are being manufactured. They don't have any way of enforcing IP rights because they're from country Y. That manufacturing plant or that manufacturing machine will never get the designs from country Y because it's in country X, because there's no trust and there's no system of exchanging economic value. Now, if, on the other hand, this design can be sent via a trustless system on a one-time execution basis to that robot, then all of a sudden you have the ability to create economic value there with the cutting-edge design.
Okay.
And the reason why this works, the reason how this connects to Djinn, is because nobody will know the design except the genius who's sending the design and the idiot, which is the robot executing the design.
Okay. So it could work with like a drink manufacturing plant and the Coca-Cola formula. So it's like apparently only 2 people in the world know it, or however many people know it, and they send it to a plant to produce it.
Well, maybe that's highly unlikely, because it's very hard to verify the execution, and plus the materials are, exposing the material list itself would probably break the secrecy.
The formula.
Yeah. But in general, the idea is wherever there is verifiable execution and proprietary information, Djinn can be a bridge.
That's interesting. Verifiable execution and valuable information. That's how you describe the problem that Djinn solves.
Yeah, and we've been discussing partnerships with various other subnets, and we're excited on how we can integrate in the BitTensor ecosystem and really start realizing this vision.
Yeah, I think on that note, there's a few. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves in announcing this right here, but this should be coming down as soon as things are formalized. But there's a few subnets out there that you could imagine are maybe sports specific or investment related, and those are natural partners for the application that we've already just discussed. But there are actually several others, and in principle, almost any subnet could be relevant for us, and we're talking to as many of them as we can, where this execution and information bundling is or decoupling is relevant. BitTensor is such a novel, it's so focused on the AI component, the information and intelligence component. And there's still that big question of, well, a lot of it, if it can be done technologically with, remotely, on the internet, fine. But what about executing AI principles or AI information or intelligence in the real world? That's the kind of stuff that Iosif's been getting at, and I think there's a real potential there, and that's the one that we're exploring as part of our long-term, more long-term plans.
Okay. This would only apply to like black box type of subnets, though, right? It wouldn't apply to someone making an open source script for something.
No, it could. Why not? It depends. Remember, what we want to do is connect information or intelligence with execution. So if you have intelligence, you have a great open source script or whatever you have, but you have nowhere to make money from it. Well, now you can. Now you can come to Djinn.
The value proposition seems to be in proprietary, like, information that isn't publicly known and selling that.
It might come down to a philosophical thing. Like, what does it mean to be publicly known? If you know that some particular sharp, smart bettor is betting on the Lakers at this particular line, is that public information, or is that a derivative of the public info or the private information that they have? It's not clear. The real win here is everything that Iosif and Harry have been talking about, is the decoupling. It doesn't have to be the same individual who has the intelligence and the execution. If you have just one dimension, you're looking for a person on Earth who has both the intelligence and the execution. They may not exist in the same person, but if you could decouple those, now you've opened up an opportunity where people can compete on two separate dimensions. The coverable area is much larger. So now you can create new value that would have never otherwise existed. There's, I think, Harry, how many? 500 million different user accounts registered at different sports books, 500 million, and growing every day. What are those people doing? They have this wonderful asset of an account that has not been banned. Wouldn't it be great to use that to put in smart bets? They don't know what the smart bets are, but they have the access. On the other hand, you have people who have been poring over information. Maybe they have private information, like you say, or maybe, if I look at public information and I'm smarter than others and I run an open source model and I get an insight that others don't have, is that now private? At what point does it become private as opposed to a derivative of public that only I was able to discern? Whatever the case may be, if I have some intelligent signals that I would love to be able to bet it, but I can't. I'm handcuffed. Well, if I can connect via Djinn with all of these 500 million accounts, and some of them are interested in me and they'll pay me for my signal, I'm very, very happy. I walk away, right? I'm paid for my intelligence.
Okay. So this is my summary. I think I understand the subnet pretty well. Is you as a genius, well, you're just someone trying to execute a bet. You come to Djinn and you basically say your bet, and then someone buys it and they do the execution. And then buying it is equivalent to you placing the bet.
So you're able to capture part of the economic value of that bet by selling it. Which you otherwise would not have. Like, okay, you have a wonderful system. You know how to make a 10% edge. What you do is you go on Djinn, you start selling the signals. You price them right, you guarantee them, and then they get bought. And then yes, you captured a near equivalence to what you were expecting to win.
Right. Well, Philip, Iosif, Harry, I'll start wrapping it up here. Before I ask the last question, anything you feel like should be clarified or you want to touch on that I didn't bring up?
I think we went very, very deep today. I don't think we've ever gone this deep in a podcast before on all of the various technical components. And thank you for that, Grant. That was a really deep dive. And I'm happy we were able to generate some clarity on the technology powering Djinn.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe one thing to just as a curiosity to point out is that, of course, we're one of the most technologically advanced subnets. We ship more than anyone else. We have more GitHub commits, more lines of code, more everything that you can imagine. But we're also the most decentralized subnet ourselves in terms of both ownership and miners and by every measure, we're if not number one, then we're number two in terms of the breadth of ownership and the breadth of miners. So we're really the people's subnet.
Okay. Harry, anything to add before I ask the last question?
I want to hear the question.
Okay. Hopefully I get a smile out of Harry with this question. You guys are sports bettors. How do you beat the line? How do you beat Vegas?
What do you mean? How do you beat Vegas? Join Djinn?
Well, I thought that was the reason y'all created Djinn was because y'all were smashing the line and banned everywhere.
You want me to tell you actually what we do?
Of course, come on. You guys
That's not gonna happen, but or you could take our courses at Analytics.bet and you'll find out.
All right, give me a speed course here on how to become a better sports bettor.
All right, there's 3 ways to win. Okay. So there's 3 ways to have an edge. You either have better information, better execution, or better pricing or better opinion. And so there's basically 3 ways to win. So if you know something that nobody else knows, you know LeBron's going to be injured before anybody else does, then even if his team wins or loses, you don't care because you know the odds are going to move in a certain direction once that's public. You can capitalize on that information. So that's number one. That's the most the easiest way to win because it's guaranteed that you're going to win. It's just the hardest to execute because where are you going to get inside information from? Execution is just being able to execute on public information faster than anyone else. So it gets announced that LeBron's injured, and you're the fastest person to the market to actually execute on that. That's like high frequency trading type of stuff. That's a little bit more reliable because you can scale it, but again, it's hard to be the fastest. And then finally, the third is you're using all public information. You just have a better opinion than everyone else. If you're given all the information, you're the best at saying, well, this is what the odds should be, and the odds are wrong, so I'm going to bet the odds. So that's where analytics comes in. That's where statistics comes in. That's where my expertise. That's where most of our expertise comes in. So those are the 3. Those are pretty much the only 3 ways to make money in sports betting or in financial markets or in anything. So find the one you're good at and, stick to that.
All right. That was beautiful. Philip, Harry, Iosif, pleasure talking to you guys today. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg.
Thanks so much for hosting us.
See ya.